grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life I've been grinding all my life. Look, all my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life I've been grinding all my life.
Rob, I'm glad to see you, brother.
Thank you, Rich. Thank
Yeah.
you for the invite. I'm in the writer's block.
Yes, sir. You're in the
Yeah.
writer's block. That's right. We're not blocking you though. We're making sure that you have the room to say anything you want for at least 1 hour.
All right. Beautiful.
And there's no there's no restrictions. Just be yourself. Curse if you want to curse. And
Yeah.
let's get it. Yeah. So Rob, why don't you tell the audience about yourself? Give me some more insight about you. But first of all, let me introduce you. First of all, like you've been someone that I've admired from afar. And then when I started to speak with you through I think in those days through Facebook maybe and through email and maybe even I want to say maybe even like MySpace, things like that.
Oh shit,
yeah. Because we're talking 90s. We're talking
Mhm.
90s. We're talking
Yes, we are.
thousands. So you were someone that I always admired because you really knew the pulse, especially in those days of like reggae music, rockers music, and then hip hop as well. So it was like, wow, Rob definitely is the man. I got to know this person. And every time we spoke, you always responded to me, always were like the nicest person to me. And I always appreciated that. So as a fellow journalist, I have to say big up to you and thank you for taking the time so we can, receive you and also speak about your New York Times bestseller, The Marathon, Don't Stop, The Life and Times of Nipsey Hussle, right? So,
Thank you.
yes,
Thank you.
sir.
I appreciate that. Likewise, you've always been a real cool guy. And we come from that era of print media when people still bought magazines and the communication with artists was really going through our eyes and ears and passing to the fans that way instead of like through your phone.
Yeah.
Social media has definitely changed the game on publishing. But salute to you for building your own platform because I think that's really the way forward. I love working on a team. I love being part of Vibe Magazine. For those that don't know, I was one of the founding editors of that magazine when it first kicked off. I heard about it in 1992. At the time, I was working at an art magazine by day, and by night, I was DJing in different reggae clubs around New York. And you mentioned about hip hop and dancehall. We just had the Hip Hop 50 last year,
Right.
Which it reminded people that those two cultures are really interwoven together. Like Cool Herc's party is why that was chosen as the anniversary of hip hop. And Cool Herc, as you know, is a Jamaican youth who came with his family to the Bronx using his father's sound system, to play different records. And so it's that whole sound system culture that created this thing called hip hop. And so I don't really separate the two. It's just like different accents, different strands of a family tree. And so as I mentioned before we started, Super Cat was the first story that I pitched to Vibe, and they, hired me to write that profile. This was around the time of the Don Dada album, when Cat was making records with Puffy and Biggie and Heavy D, and doing his Wild Apache label out of New York City. And to me, he was like the dopest artist in any genre at that moment, and I was thrilled to have a chance to build with him. That became a feature in the test issue of Vibe. If you remember the one with Tretch on the cover, came out in '92. No one really knew if it was going to work. because a lot of people at Time Warner honestly didn't believe that hip hop fans would support a magazine. Some people wondered. There was one person who was like she wasn't a Vibe person. She was a Time Warner person that was helping us out with the first issue.
Yeah.
I remember her saying, "Do hip hop fans really read?" And it sounds funny now, but it was those attitudes really were real. And
Right.
So Quincy Jones kicked in the door. All respect to Q. He had a vision. Of course, the Source was doing it. Rap Pages. There's a lot of other publications, but what Vibe brought to the table was, I think, just a level of polish and beautiful photography, great design,
Mm.
and really great writing. We worked hard to make the stories really, exceptional, like to push the journalism, to push the voices, authentic voices, some of whom had never published in national magazine before. And so I had an opportunity to work with so many greats there, from Greg Tate, Joe Morgan, Dream Hampton, Kevin Powell, Scott Polson Bryant, Bones Malone, Harry Allen, Jeff Chang. The list goes on and on. Karen Good, Cheo Coker. There's so many amazing voices that really defined this conversation that we have till this day around hip hop. And so I was the first, from the first issue to the last issue, I was at Vibe. I think I'm the only staff member of the editorial team that never left. I was there when they literally marched us out of the building. The bank repossessed their asset and they had armed guards in 2009, marched us out the building. And then I was like, I would have stayed at Vibe forever. I love Vibe. I thought it was an amazing place to go to work every day. And I was able to do books and other things while I was still at Vibe. I edited the Biggie book, Unbelievable, which I worked with Cheo on that. And then that book became the film Notorious. It was optioned by Biggie's estate, and it became the basis for the script that Cheo co-wrote, and that was a very successful film. It was one of the hip hop biopics that really, made possible future motion pictures around hip hop. So, and it was in the later part of my run at Mass Appeal that I reconnected with Nipsey around the time that he had just released Victory Lap, which now has 1 billion streams on streaming on Spotify, I think it is.
Wow.
But when he came to New York at that time, he went to some of the big radio stations, and they greeted him respectfully, but you really got the sense they hadn't been listening to his music. It was sort of like playing catch up. And this is a man who had a whole long career as a mixtape artist, basically because he was not willing to accept the shitty deals that the record industry would offer to a young man that they can leverage to take a bad deal.
Right.
And he understands that. He understood that, and that's why he chose to stay independent. And the Marathon mixtape, Marathon Continues, these records were his declaration of independence, and Victory Lap was always to him like the completion of that trilogy from Marathon Continues, and Victory Lap. So he always knew that would be the album, but it took him a very, very long time to get the right deal and also to perfect the project. And so I got to speak to him within days of putting out what he considered at that moment like his life's work. And anybody who has met Nipsey Hussle will tell you that they'll never forget him, and that he changed their way of thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
I had the chance to speak with him at different times in his career. He came up to Vibe near the end, like 2009. He came in there with one of his early mixtapes, Bullets Ain't Got No Name, Volume 2, I think it was.
Okay.
And everybody who met him was like, this guy's incredible. At that time, I'd never heard his music or even heard of him. But after listening to his songs they played for us and just feeling his energy, his charisma, I spoke to him after the listening. I said, "You're doing what you're doing. It sounds great, and we're going to do everything we can to shine a light on you." And he got his page and Vibe. He had apparently, I found out later when I was working on the book,
Yeah.
that he had been pitching himself to the next section. I don't know if you remember the next section, but it was like
Yeah.
up and coming,
I remember that. Yeah.
the next to blow kind of thing. So that would be the place where the first article on Nas appeared in Next, the first article on Mary J. Blige, Outkast, they all had that one page Next. And so he was a student of the game, student of hip hop, business, and media. And he set a goal. He wanted to get a write up in Next. So he was sending his demo and his photograph, which I was not aware of. I didn't actually edit that section, but I found out later he was getting a little bit salty because we were not getting back to him for a long time.
Yeah.
And the honest truth was that artists that weren't signed didn't usually get a Next.
Right.
It tended to be people that had a deal and that were about to drop a big, project, and then the industry had kind of like embraced them. Nip wasn't at that point, so when he came up with his mixtape to play for us, he was determined to get his look, and he accomplished his goal. But then, like I said, within the year, Vibe had folded, and he was on the rise.
Right.
I think he had a better digital strategy than we did, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I read that in your book, that he was actually trying to, pitch, like he started from a youthful age, which was incredible. And the fact that he that when you met him is because he kept on trying, he kept on submitting his work to the magazine over and over. Like he was very persistent.
Yes.
And I thought that was, extremely incredible because, to be honest, one thing that I noticed, I grew up with people like Heavy D. I grew up with people like Puffy. I grew up with people like um you name it, like a lot of these people in the 90s I grew up with, right?
Are you
And
from Mount Vernon?
I am from Mount Vernon. I am
Okay,
from Mount
okay.
Vernon. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
from Mount Vernon. Yeah, and I'll be sure, people like that. So
Sure. Pete Rock.
Pete Rock, yeah.
Yeah.
But I say the Heavy D and I say the Puffy, independently, because they had the same type of attitude where it's like they're not going to take no for an answer. They're just going to keep on knocking on that door, keep on trying every day, and they're going to keep on until someone answers that door. And I saw that in your book when you said that Nipsey had that same type of persistence.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, that's really like a real entrepreneurial, I should say, type of spirit. Do you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Absolutely. And you only need one yes.
Okay.
You could get 100 no's. If you just don't quit, you
Yeah.
just get to that one yes, and then the door swings open. So
Yeah.
I think that's why there's so many parts of his story. Like that's a very early part of the story, but that
Yeah.
quality in his character comes up again and again.
Mm.
And you see somebody who has reached a higher and higher levels of success, but then would still experience setbacks and
Okay.
disappointments and just bullshit and street shit, police harassment,
Yeah.
weird real estate situations, and all kinds of different things that would have broken a weaker person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And every single time he found the resilience to just get up, dust himself off, and keep going. And that's what the marathon mindset really is about to me. It's like
Mhm.
ultimate test of endurance, you know, and it's whether you are leading the race or
Mhm.
you're in the back of the pack, you're on your pace and you're going to continue to run and you're going to get to the finish line, however long it takes. And, you know, that is a really inspiring thing. And it's, you know, honestly, it helped me finish the book.
Oh,
You
wow,
know,
okay. Right. So you had the marathon mentality as well.
for sure. I couldn't have asked for a better coach,
Yeah.
you know, to be in my ears while I'm staying up night after night finishing this. You know, it came out to like 400-page book.
Yeah.
And I think I turned in more like 500 or 600 pages. You know, there's a lot to tell.
Yeah.
And, you know, I knew I had to get it right. I knew how much Nipsey meant to people and how much he meant to me. And, you know, I was not going to slack on this project. So I had to push and push. And, you know, we pushed the deadline a couple
Mhm.
of times as well because, you know, I just had to tell my editor it's not ready yet.
I
So
like that, Rob. I like that. I like that. What made you decide on writing this book? You could have written so many other pieces. I mean, you have written other books, but what made you decide on the marathon, Nipsey Hussle? Before you answer that, let me just say, as a person on the outside, I wasn't that fully aware of Nipsey Hussle. Yeah, I heard his songs here and there, but the amount of attention and the amount of love and the amount of, I would say, street cred, just for the culture, hip hop cred that he received for someone who wasn't always in the top 10 or always in, every DJ's playlist in the club. When he passed away, I mean, it was on the level. I mean, I want to say it was on the level of the Biggie and Tupac's. It was on a very high level for someone who wasn't in your face or in the top 20 or Billboard or something like that. So, what made you decide to do this book, and what are your thoughts on how he became so great and prominent? Was it because of his love in the community? Was that one of his reasons?
for sure it was. It's a great question. And I think your experience is not that uncommon. A lot of people who I've spoken with as in the time that the book came out have said similar things. Like I knew about him, but I didn't really know. I was not paying attention. I wasn't listening to music. And that's why I said like he went to Hot 97 and the big, host over there was like, I've really not had a chance to sit with one of your projects before. And, he's like 10 mixtapes in at this point. And, it's sort of like what I was doing with the next section. Like if you weren't signed to a major label, it wasn't a priority for us to get you in that section. And it was only after meeting him and feeling his energy that we were like, oh no, this guy has to be,
Mm,
And so I think Nipsey set a goal to find his real followers and fans instead of trying to please everybody. He didn't care about being famous. He really did not want to be famous and broke. Like that was a really big priority. Like he didn't want to have that like starving artist thing,
yeah,
which can happen. A lot of rappers are not as successful as you might assume. And
yeah,
especially a couple of years after the record deal, KRS One has that song, Do You Ever Think About When You Out of Here? You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
um, and so Nip thought about that and he planned for the future. And yes, he was successful because he invested in his community. He was successful because he made amazing music. He lived by a code. The things he did is beyond opening businesses in his neighborhood. He really, he was part of a gang, the Rolling 60s,
Yeah.
that, had a really notorious reputation in Los Angeles. And I think over time he evolved to see that gang life was not the way, at least the way it was running as he saw it, was not the way forward. But he worked to kind of return the gang as much as possible to the original, origin of these three organizations. If you look at, there's a documentary called Bastards of the Party,
Yeah.
which I recommend people check out.
What is that? What's
It's
that?
called Bastards of the Party.
What's that? A movie you said?
It's a documentary.
Documentary. Okay.
Yeah, and it's about how the Black Panthers were targeted by the feds, and in the rubble of the Black Panthers,
Yeah.
that's where the Crips, emerged from.
Oh, wow.
The
Okay.
name Crips is an acronym for Community Revolution in Progress. So, there's a deeper meaning than what I was taught as I'm not from South Central Los Angeles. I was born in another part of California, and I moved to Baltimore, moved to New York, but I didn't really grow up around gangs.
Right.
And so I was educated by pop culture, by movies and the evening news. So I really had a twisted concept of what that whole thing is about, and I had to educate myself. And I think Nip understood where these organizations were originally heading, and he saw that there was kind of a divide and rule thing going on between neighborhoods, and the system wanted people to kill each other. They didn't want people to unite. And Nip was very intentional about having those conversations. And, so he doing things on a level even beyond entrepreneurship. He was trying to plan for the community to survive and thrive in lots of different ways. And that's what made him a legend. And, you mentioned when he passed away, it was a big deal. There's only been 3 memorial services in the Staples Center.
Right.
The first was Michael Jackson. The second was Nipsey Hussle, and the third was Kobe Bryant.
Wow.
Other than that, it's never been done. And he had just
wow. That's crazy.
He had just put
Crazy.
the major label project out, right?
Yeah.
So 2018, he did Victory Lap. He's now signed to Atlantic Records. He's managed by Rock Nation. He's still, he's in a partnership with Atlantic, I should say, because that was the whole basis of the deal. He owned his own label, All Money and No Money Out.
Mm-hmm.
They partnered with Atlantic, and he was able to get favorable terms to feel, sense of ownership that he always demanded. He owned rights to all his raps.
Yeah.
And so he was major in that way. And if he had, if things had gone differently in 2019, he was still here, he would be touring stadiums, and I don't know all the things he'd be doing. You think about what he would mean in this moment in time, while I was writing the book, even we were going through, so much upheaval in America, not only the pandemic, the police violence and another wave of uprisings around racial discrimination in this country. And I know he would have been at the forefront of that.
Yeah.
And in some ways, he did inspire it, even though he wasn't here in the physical. And you still see people like Kendrick at the pop out referencing Nipsey.
Yeah.
He dropped a record yesterday. He talks about Nipsey in it.
Oh yeah, that's what that was. He's mentioned Nipsey in there.
Yeah.
I got to listen to that. What do you know the name of that new song?
It's untitled. It's on his Instagram, but people are
Awesome.
calling it like The Day the Party Died, or Watch the Party Die, or something like that. Yeah, he put it out like the exact moment the VMA started.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like an indictment or a criticism of the entertainment industry, not the VMAs, but just the whole industry and the media, the decadence of, just how, he's been going at Drake for most of the year. And I think Drake is a symbol of a larger issue, right? It's not just, it is personal, but it's bigger than that. And, I think Drake symbolizes something that Kendrick is trying to undermine or dismantle, which is this idea that the culture can just become entertainment, like microwave entertainment.
Yeah.
And we come from a different school, Rich, you know?
Dude, yeah, I mean, to some degree, but I'm thinking to myself, if Tupac was alive, wouldn't he be similar to Nipsey? Wouldn't he be similar to Kendrick? He would just, I mean, one thing in your book that I enjoyed as well is that you brought to my attention, I should say, is with dedication. I think that's the name of it,
Yeah,
where
the
Nipsey
Kendrick
calls him,
collab.
yeah, it's Kendrick collab, right? And doesn't he call himself the this generation
Tupac generation.
Tupac
Yeah,
generation? Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So
And
so that Compton area, you mentioned it earlier before we got on the shoot about, that Compton is definitely like one of those nuggets. I agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of gems coming out of Compton.
yeah,
Gems,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And, for Nipsey and Kendrick to make a record together was a
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah.
And that record is just special when you listen to it. And
Yeah.
but both Kendrick and Nip had a special connection to Tupac. And I think, part of it is that his parents were part of the movement.
Yeah.
Tupac's mom, Afeni, was, in prison while
Mm.
she was pregnant with him
Right.
because of, Black Panther
Right.
activity and, the government kind of cracking down on her. And so, she was part of the struggle
Yep.
through his whole childhood. And, I think he just inherited that.
Right.
And so he always saw a larger purpose for his music. And, Kendrick and Nip are the same. I think they definitely don't see hip hop as just entertainment.
Right.
It's a way of economically empowering yourself and a community. And it's also a way of giving food for thought and, inspiration to people and teaching them truth,
Right.
that they're not getting through other sources.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, that's how that was some of the core elements of hip hop from the very beginning, right? The very beginning, from the message way back, all of these,
Yep.
especially during that whole, um, I want to say, when you had like Queen Latifah, you had Poor Righteous Teachers, you had KRS-One, you had, there was a lot of messaging during that time. Funny enough, it was the gangster rap that kind of changed that, right? They came in after that and changed it around. So, I wanted to say, Rob, is that you did mention something in your book, that it was a quote from Tupac about
Mm.
sparking the he might not be able to
Change the world.
change the world, but he
Yeah.
might be able to spark the mind of the person that
That's
changed the
hell.
world.
It's hell when you can't be around your peers. All my life I grew up around black people, poor people, but I can't live around poor people now because they'll rob me. And why would they rob me? Because they're starving, because there's no money here. But they're telling me, now that I made a little money, I have to move here. So it's not like no one's ever trying to deal with this section. They're just moving away from it. And we're gonna have more stars coming from together, but they're gonna all move this way. You know what I'm saying? So it's like all the society is doing is leeching off the ghetto. They use the ghetto for their pain, for their sorrow, for their culture, for their music, for their happiness, for their movies, to talk about boys in the hood. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be I don't want to be 50 years old at a BET We Shall Overcome Achievement Awards. You know what I'm saying? Not me. I want when they see me, they know that every day when I'm breathing, it's for us to go farther. Every time I speak, I want the truth to come out. You know what I'm saying? Every time I speak, I want to shiver. I don't want them to be like, they know what I'm going to say because it's polite. They know what I'm going to say. And even if I get in trouble, you know what I'm saying? Ain't that what we're supposed to do? I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us. We might not be the ones, but let's not be selfish, and because we're not going to change the world, let's not talk about how we should change it.
Do you see that with Nipsey? Do you see that with Kendrick? Do you see that with with the new generation? Do you see that in these new artists?
Without a doubt. At this point, Kendrick
Okay.
is an OG, you know, to a
He's an
new
OG.
generation. Yeah,
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at him.
yeah.
I mean, look at where he's at in his career. You know,
Okay,
like
okay.
if you really check the file,
Yeah.
you know, he's made multiple classic albums.
Hold on one
He's been
second.
able to bring his whole city together, different sets from neighborhoods that didn't get along on stage together.
Right.
So in hip hop, I'm not saying in the street sense, but in hip hop, you have to look at him as an OG now. So I don't even see Kendrick as a new artist, but maybe he's getting new attention on him. And yes, Nip, Kendrick definitely had their imagination sparked by Tupac. There's no question. And
Wow.
in turn, they are sparking so many people. Yesterday, I mentioned a record came out, you know, that Kendrick dropped sort of unexpectedly. People were not sure
Yeah.
if he was going to take a break until he drops his album or whatever. They figured he won the battle. He's announced the Super Bowl. But no, he had more to say. And so he put out this record. And what I thought was really cool was he inspired a young MC to do a freestyle on it straight away. Like it, you know,
Okay.
so he is sparking
Okay.
other people in turn. There's no question about it. And that's his intention. He wants to not only cement himself as the greatest of all time, which I think,
Yeah.
you know, there's a strong argument to be made.
Right.
But he also wants to spark the minds of others. And yeah, but if you go on the website Genius, they posted this 16-year-old rapper that the same day Kendrick dropped, he had a freestyle of over that same beat. So
that
you know,
same beat. Wow.
people
Yeah.
are listening, people are inspired. And
Right.
That's
Right.
I think that's what Kendrick really wants to see.
What? Right.
And that's what all of us want to see that care about hip hop as a culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just entertainment, showbiz, and
Yeah.
you know, gimmicks and you know.
Right. Right. So listen, I don't want to give away too much of the book. There are a couple of people because people need to go buy the book. Do you have the book in audio, by the way?
Yeah, it's on Audible and Google Play and all that.
Okay, so it's on right. So where can we get the book? And let's just start there.
It's really everywhere that books are sold. It's published by Simon and Schuster.
Beautiful.
Atria Books is the imprint of Simon and Schuster. So it's everywhere.
Everywhere.
You can
Okay.
get it. Yeah.
And they can get it on Audible, which is
You can get it at the link in my bio on all my socials. Robert J. Kenner on everything.
You heard that, people? It's robertjkenner.com.
No, just that's all my socials, Instagram, Twitter.
Social. Okay, just look on the Instagram, Robert J. Kenner.
There's a link in the bio.
You see the book, right.
Yeah.
Let me just show the book right here, guys. This book right here. And like he said, you know, he definitely put in a lot of work into this book. And as you can see here, it's a New York Times bestseller. So kudos to my boy Rob. Kudos for that.
Yeah, that was amazing to get that level of embrace from everybody. And it just showed, I think, how much people love Nipsey and how much they want to know. I think one of the things you asked earlier why I chose to write about him.
Yeah.
And partly it was just you do what's right in front of you at the time that you know is important. So that was that reason. But also I saw that he had never really gotten those cover story profiles like we used to do in Vibe, like because partly he wasn't through the major label system. He was on the XXL freshman cover with, you know, J. Cole and Wiz Khalifa, but he didn't really get like those in-depth profiles. And so, you know, people that weren't in his immediate, you know, circle in Los Angeles, and he had fans all over the world, but they were, you know, kind of an underground tribe, right? He wasn't a household name to everybody.
Right.
So I thought he deserved that. After our interview, you know, a few days after Victory Lap, he blew my mind. We were talking for over an hour, and the gems that he was dropping on everything from like, you know, African culture to crypto to, you know, business strategy and, you know, his vision for his artistry, why he's Tupac of his generation. There's so much stuff we talked about. And I was like, we can't just boil this down to a 5-minute YouTube video, right? And
right.
so it was just like a responsibility. I felt like I had to not waste that. And plus I had known him earlier and, you know, Vibe Days. And then at Complex, there was another moment that people may remember when he brought out the $100 mixtape, Crenshaw.
Yeah.
That was a really brilliant business move that everybody thought he was crazy, honestly, before he did it. He got a lot of like jokes. And
What was that? He brought out what? Oh, the mixtape.
he put out a mixtape at a
Yeah.
time when people couldn't figure out how to get paid off music, right? Everybody, you know, this is like after Napster, after the internet messed up the whole CD and vinyl and cassette business model.
Right.
The majors were freaking out, and it was the blog era, right? So everybody was downloading MP3s, and you were getting your music off, you know, Not Right and Two Dope Boys, and you know, whichever blog you liked.
Yeah.
Nipsey was very much a part of that wave. He was very plugged into technology, but he was like, I'm not going to give my music away for free. What if you know, I've been giving several projects away for free, and I'm going to put my next one out for free, like always. But what if I say to my real hardcore fans, if you really fuck with me, if you support the movement, come to my pop-up shop and you can purchase a limited edition physical CD for $100.
Got you.
And this is music that's online for free.
Yeah.
So you're only paying because you're proud to pay. And that's why he called the movement Proud to Pay. And people thought he was crazy, but he sold $100,000 of CDs the first night. The pop-up.
Wow.
And you know, of that money, a lot of it was from Jay-Z. Like I think 10,000 or so he wired because he heard about it through Rap Radar. And Elliot. And Jay recognized the brilliance of that move because, you know, you have to find new ways to monetize creativity, right? And and that move has now been co-opted by the major. So like when Taylor Swift drops an album, you know, she'll do the deluxe bundle with concert tickets and a special CD, and that's, you know, they charge a lot for that. Oh, the other part with Nip's $100 CD, when you bought it, you had access to a concert that only people that bought the CD could go to. It was like a special part, you know, inner circle performance. So it's just doing cool shit that no one thought of. And so during that time when I was at Complex, you know, he kind of got mad at Complex because, you know, well, they're known for you know, Complex does the lists, you know, some of them are like best rapper and some of them are more like kind of salty or snarky, you know, like so I think this one was underachieving rappers or something like that. Most, and they're basically saying, you know, we've been waiting on Nipsey Hussle for so long. Why hasn't he put out music? And he was on a list with all these other people that were perceived to be falling off. He had gotten support from Complex in the past, and he didn't expect to get shots from Complex. So he put a tweet out like, I think it was like, fuck Complex, you know, 10 rap, no interviews, or, you know, you have to pay $10,000 for an interview, something like that. So anyway, in that moment, I was one of the editors. You know, obviously, it's like a red alert in the building, like Nips tweeting at us and saying, you know, saying fuck Complex. So, you know, my suggestion was just reach out to him again and let him say whatever he wants to say. You know, don't filter him. Don't try to spin it. Just let him talk his shit. And so if you go back and Google Nipsey Hussle Complex, the first interview that's going to come up. He did a lot of complex stuff, but the top hit is an interview by my man Angel Diaz, who just, you know, received the full fury of Nipsey's, you know, personality at that time. And, you know, I've seen so many interviews of Nip and read so many interviews. This is one of the most candid that he ever
Okay.
done. And it actually has a lot of similarities to what Kendrick is saying about the music industry now. You know,
Right.
he's basically saying, like, who are these journalists that get to determine whether we're falling off or underachieving? Like, you don't know what I'm dealing
Right.
with in the real world. Like, there's real reasons why I haven't dropped my album yet. You know, I'm going through real situations and things that you've never even comprehended in your life. And so you don't have the right to speak on my career. Fuck you if you know. So, you know, that's a really you know, candid
Yeah.
interview that, you know, it stuck with me,
Yeah.
that experience. And so I knew that Nip was a special person, and, you know, it was an honor to be in the right place in the right time to have that conversation with him around Victory Lap. And once I had that interview, I knew I had to, you know, share it with the world, honestly, and, you know, do something that would cement his movement and his legacy so people would understand the way I saw it, you know, in the context of hip hop and the whole history of the culture.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
he belongs on that Mount Rushmore, you know.
Now, I didn't grow up with Nip. I didn't grow up with him in the neighborhood as a kid, but I watched Nip grow up in front of me. I watched him grow into a full-grown man and an incredible young businessman. I still remember the first time when he pushed up on me with his tape. Most rappers, when they push up on Snoop Dogg with a tape, this is their line. Hey, dog, listen to my music. I can make you $1 million. Nipsey's line was, hey, homie, listen to my music. Just give it a listen. That's it? No record deal? You don't want to get put on? So to me, he had vision to know and understand that I don't want to be handed out nothing. I'm gonna come get mine. But at the same time, looking for that clarification, looking for that confirmation. You know, just listen to it, homie. The first time I got his CD, I didn't listen to it. I told him that. I kept it 100 with him. I'm like, K-Mac gave me your CD at football practice. I wouldn't listen to that. I was at football practice. Then, about a week later, he gave me another CD. So I'm rolling up a blunt in the back seat of the car on the CD. So I open the CD up. Oh, the homie know. Cuz no. He know the story already. So I'm just telling y'all so y'all be enlightened. So I took the CD out and I popped the CD in. I was like, damn, cuz it's hard. So I'm like, K-Mac, cuz the little homie hard, cuz let me get down with it. Long story short, we ended up connecting. We ended up making music together. We ended up making a brotherhood. We ended up creating a bond. We created something that was special. And what was crazy was when he first started, a lot of people was like, you know, he looked like me, he this, he that, but I don't think so. I think, you know, it was the fact that he was tall, he was lanky, he had braids, he had that LA mentality, and he claimed the gang. So, I mean, it was natural to be categorized. But one thing that me and Nip had was a kind spirit. We had that spirit of love, of, like Sam said, just magnating. Like people magnate to Snoop Dogg and they magnate towards Nipsey. It's like when we met each other, it was like a magnet coming together. We had the same spirit. But what was crazy was Nip mentality was stronger than a rapper that's been in the game for 15 years. And I'll give you an example of that. One of the first conversations me and Nipsey had, he was talking to me about, hey, cuz, you need to do a amusement park, cuz, doggy land, cuz. I'm like, for real? He like, yeah, cuz, with 40-ounce roller coasters and, you know what I'm saying? Nigga, you Snoop Dogg, cuz, everybody come see you know what I'm saying? Yeah, come check your amusement park. I'm like, cuz, you tripping. So he kept, like, every time I would see him, he would always bring it up. He would bring it up. So, like, the 5th time he said it to me, or was it the 6th time? Yeah, the 6th time he said it to me. Let me get politically correct. Yeah, cuz the 6th time he said it to me, I said, Nip, why don't you just do it for me, cuz? Because I don't understand the dynamics of what you're saying, cuz I'm an old school nigga. I'm A, B, C, D. You didn't went off into the Matrix, cuz. You gotta... So with that being said, Nip ended up creating a square, and he ended up buying property, and he ended up having things like Vector 90, and he ended up doing things in the community, and he built his own doggy land. He built his own world. He built his own thing that people from around the world is starting to come to, take pictures of, stand in front of, immortalize this man. The things that he wanted for me, he did for himself. But he had vision for me that I didn't even have for myself. So I want to thank you, mother and father, for bringing Nipsey into this world, for giving us Nipsey. I thank y'all for that. And for those that knew Nipsey Hussle personally, you knew he had nothing but love for every gang member from Southern California. I don't care what neighborhood you was from. One conversation that me and Nip had once upon a time was, cuz, you know the Trays like your music too, cuz. He like, no they don't, cuz. I'm like, yeah they do, nigga. Everybody like our music, cuz. It ain't like that. When you make music and you come from the dirt, one thing about a neighborhood, we gonna respect another man from another neighborhood, even if he ain't from our neighborhood, if he come from where we come from. And I explained that to Nip. And when I was explaining it to him, he was getting it, but he wasn't getting it. But I was like, look at what you're doing. You make records with YG. You made records with Game. You made records with Problem. You making records with Bloods. Crippin' and Bloods making records, and y'all really love each other, and y'all bonding with each other. Y'all pulling up together. You in they neighborhoods. You loving them, and they loving you. You are a peace advocate, Nip. That's what you are. And the reason why I know this is because that's what I am. You know, real recognize real. I know what he is, I know what he was. And the marathon is gonna continue. Look at the love, look at the spirit. This man, I'm gonna end it like this. This man got a letter from Barack Obama, man. My last words will be, for God so loved the world that he gave us a good crib.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to just a couple more quick things on Nips.
Yeah.
'Cause like I said, I don't want to give out too much of the book. People need to read it.
It's
But
cool, man.
there's a couple of names here. You could just kind of give us a little brief take on who they may or may not be. We have one guy named Dexter Brown,
Oh yeah.
and then we have another guy named Black Sam. Have you
Yeah,
ever heard
yeah,
him? And
Of
then
course. Yeah.
okay, Black Sam, and then well, we'll leave that other guy off because I didn't like that name. But those two,
Well,
Dexter, huh?
Black Sam is
Black
Nip's
Sam.
big brother,
Okay.
who is still maintaining the marathon clothing business and has been the fierce defender of his brother's legacy. And he was just down at InvestFest with Earn Your
Oh, was
Leisure
he?
guys. Yeah,
Oh
in
wow,
Atlanta.
cool.
Yeah, with the whole All Money In team. But Black Sam being, he's Nip's big brother. He
He's
was
your
the
brother.
person
Okay.
that taught him a lot about business and hustling. He's a genius salesman and business owner. He literally it talks about it in the book.
Right.
He would be out on a folding table on the corner of Crenshaw and Slauson selling T-shirts and socks and DVDs, whatever, his
Right.
brother's music eventually. And the cops used to harass him and confiscate his stuff because they said he needed a license or whatever.
Oh
And
yeah.
so he eventually saved enough money to rent a storefront in that little strip mall. And from that, they built up, that was called Slauson Tees. And then they launched their own clothing line eventually, and then they own the whole strip mall eventually, And so, his story is so inspiring. And
Yeah.
so Black Sam, much respect to Black Sam. He is, the closest thing on earth to Nip that we have to this day. His big brother lived
Yeah.
his whole life with him. Dexter Brown, on the other hand, is not blood family, but somebody who had really never been heard from before I did the book. And he reached out to me after it was announced that this book was happening.
Yeah.
I got a message on Facebook, and I came to understand what a huge impact Dexter had, because there was a period of time. Dexter was a very brilliant photographer, and just technological visionary, also a swimming coach, and a lot of different things, from Trinidad, who relocated right into Nip's neighborhood. Him and his wife and their young daughters lived in a house in the middle of Rolling 60s territory. And I don't think they even understood where they were. They just bought the house because they wanted to be, in a Black neighborhood, part of the Black community. Dexter was really early on the idea of like capturing content and culture. And, he used to do photo shoots with different rap artists and Black celebrities in LA, and shot video content a lot. And he built a recording studio in his house, even though he didn't make music, because he wanted young people from the neighborhood to be able to come in and make music there. And they could own their stuff. It wasn't like he was trying to exploit them. He just really had this giving spirit that he wanted to create a kind of a sanctuary for creativity for young people that might not have that. And Nip needed it at that moment. He had just been, through his evolution as a young man, there's a time where his mom wanted him out of the house. And he would sometimes be at his grandma's house, but Dexter's became a second home of sorts, and definitely a place where he had access to recording equipment. And the very first mixtape, Slauson Boy, was done in that studio. So Dexter is a very important part of the story, and one that hadn't been heard about before. So I was very happy that he reached out to me. I'm really grateful to him for sharing his story with me. It's a big part of the book, and something, if even if you think you've been really fully versed on Nipsey's story, this is something that really wasn't known. He's got a record called Mark My Words, featuring Rick Ross. And that's a little bit less well known, but just a really powerful testimony. And then there's another one called Face the World, Crenshaw project that is really dope. And of course Blue Laces Part 1 and 2.
Blue Laces?
Yeah, Blue Laces is a lot of people's favorite, and Dedication, of course.
Oh, yeah,
that album doesn't really have any weak points. It has really held up over time and gotten even deeper over time. But
is that the one with Bullets Ain't Got No Name? Is that one?
No, I'm talking about Victory Lap now.
Oh, the Victory Lap album. Okay.
Yeah. Bullets has some dope stuff. One of my favorites on that early mixtape, there's a song called the first song he played for me that came to buy is called Jackin' for Beats, or Dre Jackin' for Beats, and he's flowing over gin and juice. Which you can imagine, like, you have to come correct on that record. Like, you can't just, so, it was it's so much music from him. I love his project with Bino Redu, called No Pressure. It's one of the last things he did before Victory Lap. The whole project is fire. That's a collaborative album with him and Cat.
What's the name of it? You went in and out.
It's called No Pressure is the album.
No Pressure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No Pressure.
And it's him and Bino Redu.
God. Yeah, we definitely gonna talk, make sure we bring you back at some point when you got some time, so we can really go more deep into like the whole reggae culture, pull some gems from you, and just bring more people into, just the perspective that you may have that that others might not have seen. And we appreciate you, Rob, so much for everything you've done for the culture, and we appreciate you for just being you. Just being you. You're a good guy, Rob, but I can't lie about that. So
Appreciate you, Rich. Keep
yeah.
banging. Congrats on this new platform,
Thank you, brother.
and wish you much success. And thanks
Thank
for
you,
having
brother.
me.
Like Hulk Hogan would say, thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
All right. Yo,
Yeah.
enough respect.
Yeah,
And
enough respect, Rob.
yeah.
What's
We'll see you
the
again.
plans for the rest of the day?
I'm in the middle of working on another book at the moment. I can't say too much about it, but
Okay.
I'm on my marathon mode again. I'm
Okay.
going around the clock. It's
Okay.
another, epic project. So
Okay.
I'm very much on my discipline. I've also lost a lot of weight since I was working on the last book. I think
Wow.
the whole militant discipline of being on a schedule. And
Yeah.
one of the things I learned doing a book is that you have to actually sleep sometimes, because like when you're doing an article,
Yeah.
if it's like, a certain length
Yeah.
of writing,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can kind of leave it to one big push right at the
Right.
end. Like you research, and then there'll be that one night where you stay up all night and put most of it together. You
Yeah.
can't do that with a book. You have
Yeah.
to sleep and pace yourself. It's like Nipsey said, it's a marathon. You find your pace. So
Yeah. Yeah.
this new project, I'm really on a schedule, and I'm eating on a schedule. I'm exercising on a schedule,
Okay.
and my life. Oh, and I've completely quit drinking. Is another thing which has been good for me. So
Wow. Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Do you think that's going to affect the writing any?
It's funny. There used to be a saying with me and my friends, and we didn't make it up, but
Yeah.
write drunk, edit sober, right? So
Right.
there's
Right.
a lot
Right.
of
Right. Right.
it's like
Right.
the
Right.
cliche of the
Right.
writer with the bottle of whiskey on the
Right.
table, a glass of wine. And
Right.
I definitely subscribe to that
Yeah.
in my life, but I've found that, having a clear head is actually helpful.
It's working
You
out.
know,
Okay.
yeah. And I know
Okay.
what all the drinks taste like. I've had them all. I'm trying it this way now. So,
All the best to you, Rob. Yeah,
all right.
man. All right.
All right.
So
Okay,
good luck
Rich.
with everything. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Peace.
All right. Peace.